Hi, my name's Elaina Love, and I am director of Pure Joy Culinary Academy, and we teach a raw food program. We just finished our 3-week raw food training here in Bali at Villa Gaia Retreat Center. And today I'm going to use some of the products from Big Tree Farms to show you how to make a really amazing raw food vegan chocolate. The great thing about this chocolate is that you can use different kinds of sweetener. You can make a chocolate that's actually healthy for you. A lot of chocolates out there on the market are full of white sugar, dairy that's not so great for you, and a lot of processed oils, and the cacao has been heated, the chocolate has been heated. So when you use a raw product, it's actually a lot better for your body. It keeps the fats intact, and all the nutrients that are in the fats will stay intact as well. You get magnesium, you get theobromine, you just feel good. It's a really feel-good food. So what I have today is I've used the Big Tree brick of chocolate. It's called cacao paste. And what they do to make cacao paste is they take the whole bean of the chocolate and they dry it, and then they grind it down in a big stone grinder. And so it's the actual whole chocolate bean. Nothing has been added to it, nothing has been taken out, and then it's just turned into a block to make it easier for us to use. So what I did with that chocolate is I broke it down a little bit, and you can use a knife, and if you want you can just put some on your cutting board and chop that down a little bit into a nice, fine, thin, kind of chocolatey shreds. And then you can put hot water underneath it, a bowl of hot water, and then put like a glass bowl or a metal bowl inside that bowl of hot water and melt your chocolate down. You want to make sure the water isn't above 120 degrees or so, because if you get it too hot, it'll actually cook your chocolate. So you never want to walk away and let your water boil underneath your chocolate. So this has been really beautifully, nicely melted down. Look at that. Oh, it's so gorgeous. I love, just even without adding sweetener or anything, just the look of this chocolate gets my cells excited. So what we're going to do is I've melted down just, I don't know how much chocolate this exactly is. So I want to show you one of my favorite tools that I have. It's called the Metric Wonder Cup. What's great about this cup is it measures all different kinds of measurements, from a cup to a quarter cup to anything in between. You can do dry and you can do liquid. And you can also do metric units like milliliters. So for those of you in countries where you use milliliters, it's on there as well. So 1 cup is the same, did you know, as 240 milliliters. Now I know that. So I'm going to put my chocolate in there. This is a really great way of measuring sticky things or liquidy things. And I'm going to go for about a cup of this chocolate. I'm getting excited about having chocolate just looking at this. Wow, there we go. So a cup of liquid chocolate, cacao paste melted down, and I'm going to put that in my bowl here. Let me just take these little bits out. Voila. And what's great about this is, watch this. When I push it, it cleans as it goes. So I don't have to spend a lot of time scraping out the inside of a measuring cup. That's what I love so much about this. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some other ingredients that make chocolate taste good. One of those ingredients is salt. This is a Himalayan salt. It's a high mineral salt. We use salt that has 82 minerals in it. Most salt on the market has no minerals. It's been stripped of all its minerals and vitality. When you use a mineral salt, that means they've just taken salt rocks from either, there's a place in Utah they get them called real salt, the Himalayas. It's just big blocks of salt that's never been processed in any way, so it's full of minerals. So I'm going to put that in. Another thing I'm going to add is some sweetener. Now, I like, for people that have diabetes, or if you're working with cancer or candida, you can still enjoy chocolate, but you just want to remove the sugar. So you can use a product called xylitol, which is created from birch bark. And that's a really awesome sweetener that's out there. What I'm using today is a low glycemic sweetener, and it's called coconut palm sugar. And that's also a Big Tree products here in Bali. They make their own coconut palm sugar, which is amazing. And it's the closest you're going to get to a natural sweetener that hasn't been processed. What they do is they just get the sap from the flour and they boil it down, and then it's just ground into powder. And you want your chocolate to be smooth. By grinding your sweetener down, you're going to avoid having any grittiness in your chocolate. You can put it in your blender and get it to be a nice fine powder like that. So we'll add that in. Now, other sweeteners that you could use are things like honey. There's other sweeteners like yacon root syrup. So as long as it's not a sweetener that's really going to spike your blood sugar, you know, go ahead and use that. And then the other thing I'm going to add, I already have chocolate in here, but by adding just a little bit more cacao powder, what that's going to do is that's going to make it just a little less waxy. If you've ever had a homemade chocolate that's a little on the waxy side, What that is it's that there's too much cacao oil in there, which is when the oil has been separated from the bean. And what I like to do is add a little cacao powder to keep it from being too waxy tasting in my mouth. It makes a perfect ratio. So I'm putting about 1/4 cup of cacao powder in. The next thing I'm going to add is some vanilla powder. Now here in Bali, again, we're lucky enough to have fresh vanilla beans. I'm going to show you how I like to cut my vanilla bean. I'm going to take a vanilla bean and flatten it out. It's usually kind of curvy, so I want to flatten it out nice and straight. Cut both ends off. Use my knife to score right down the middle. Voila. And then I'm going to open it up. It's a little on the dry side. If your vanilla bean's really dry, you can rehydrate it by sticking it in a glass with just a few drops of water. And then the next day it should be nice and moist. But I'm going to be able to get these beans out. So some people ask, well, can't I use the whole bean? You definitely can. I think it's just that subtle gourmet nuance. When you use the inner bean, it's just much more texture-wise, much more beautiful. And this is really where all the flavor of the vanilla comes from. What I do with the outer pod is I can put it in my coconut palm sugar to make it taste more vanilla-y, or even put it in my glass of water for the day and it'll make it taste delicious. So I've got a lot of vanilla bean here because what I like in my chocolate is a lot of vanilla. I think vanilla and chocolate go so well together. It's a perfect combination. So I'm going to put that in. And then here's a little trick that I do that a lot of people don't know about. Now I like my chocolate to be a little on the creamy side. How can I make chocolate creamy without adding dairy? Well, one way some people do is they use cashews, so you could grind down your own cashews and use that. Today I'm going to use almond butter. I really like the flavor of almond butter in my chocolate, and it calls for about 4 tablespoons. So again, I can use my little metric Wonder Cup and go to 1/4 cup, which is the same as 4 tablespoons. And I'm just going to scoop that almond butter into this measuring cup. There's a little oil in there, that's fine. And this is going to give it a really nice buttery creaminess. Some other nut butters you could use is pecan butter, walnut butter. Walnut butter is high in omega-3 oil, so that would be a good choice. And if you can't find walnut butter, you can get your own by making it by dehydrating some walnuts and grinding it down in a food processor. Okay, so let's scrape that out, get all the goodness. This is to the time when I get to really start to ad-lib and flavor it. Before I add my flavoring, I'm going to go ahead and grind this down in my blender because I'm noticing it's a little on the gritty side. One of the keys to making a good chocolate, and this is something you should remember above all else, is you don't want to have any water anywhere, either in your blender, even on the table. It's a good idea. Just don't keep water anywhere near the chocolate. Even sometimes a liquidy addition, such as we used some butterscotch extract once and it made the chocolate seize. So what happens if you get water, even a drop, is your chocolate will what's called seizing, and it won't have that beautiful flow anymore to it. It'll be more of just a hard, almost fudgy kind of consistency. It doesn't mean you have to throw it out, but it just means it's not going to be beautiful and shiny like a chocolate should be. So now what I'm doing is I'm using a high-powered blender, and I'm going to go ahead and blend this down just to get a little bit of that grittiness down. Okay, there we go. So I've got that ground down. I'm going to start with a new bowl. And let's pour that back into the bowl. And it should be a lot smoother now. And yes, the nut butter is going to make it a tiny bit grittier than maybe a really smooth cashew butter. So that's also something to consider, is how smooth your nut butter is when you're doing it. Now we can start to think about what kind of flavors we want to add. Like I said, vanilla is a really popular flavor. I also like to use ginger in my chocolate, like a ginger essential oil, or you can use lavender oil. I've done rose flavored chocolates. And with a batch this size, this isn't a very big batch, this will make a couple trays of chocolate. I'll show you how to make those in a minute. You can do maybe 10 drops of essential oil, depending on what it is. Like if you use peppermint essential oil, you could make a really strong minty tasting chocolate by adding that in. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to use some of this to dip some truffles in, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and some of this just to flavor and put in my seashell molds. And I love the way these turn out. A lot of times I'll do mint flavored ones in this. Then you can also do a heart mold. And these are also wonderful. I love the look and shape of them. These are usually my vanilla ones. So if you have a lot of molds at home and you do a lot of chocolates, these are always mint, these are always vanilla, so you kind of know which is which. That way when you're eating them, it's not like a guessing game. One more tip I have for you is that mint chocolates will infuse into the flavors of all your other chocolates. So if you're doing a mint chocolate, keep that separate from your other chocolates. All right, so let's go ahead and separate this down even further and make some into, let's do some lavender chocolates today. That's just sounding yummy. And we'll save some for dipping our strawberries as well. All right, so now I have my little bowl, and I've got some lavender essential oil here. And lavender is quite strong, so I'm thinking for just that little amount, which will probably fill one tray of molds, maybe 2 or 3 drops. And just mix that up really nicely. Okay? You could also, if you had some pieces of dried lavender flour, you could mix that in as well. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pour that right in. And what I do is just kind of pour it in and then smear it around a little bit. Just kind of fill it into all the little shapes. Doesn't look like I'm going to get a full tray here, but we've got a few, which is nice. It's always amazing to me actually how many chocolates this actually makes when you end up doing the whole batch. What I like to do is use the edge of my knife, which is a great tool. You use the back edge, kind of scrape, see how it's scraping that tray clean? It's a really great way to just get all the chocolate off and utilize all of it. And then you can just use your finger and fill in another one. Okay. Chocolate making is a little bit of a messy job, as you can see. You want to make sure your kitchen's nice and clean before you start, and then you're going to need a lot of hot water when you go to clean up. So those are nicely filled in. And when you set up chocolates, you always want to set them up in your refrigerator, not in your freezer. When you set them up in your freezer, you're going to kind of mess with the tempering, and they might get a little off, like they might turn white on you. So when you refrigerate them, it's the perfect temperature. If you live in a cool climate, sometimes in the winter where I live, it can get down to 50 degrees, 60 degrees, and I can just let them set up on the counter. Here in Bali, we're going to want to put these in the fridge for maybe an hour, or even 20 minutes maybe, and they should be nice